We'll call the Wood Village City Council meeting November 12th, 2024, 6 p.m. to order. Let the record show that we have 4 council here and 1 councilor, Mark Clark, unless he's indicated to somebody who will be online. So I haven't heard, he may show up late. The land acknowledgement statement, would one of the councilors like to read that, please?
I can do that.
Pat, thank you.
I haven't done it in a while. Wood Village Land Acknowledgement Statement. Chinookan peoples known as the Clackamas and Cascades are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechockley was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these people included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Citizen comments, any?
Yes.
Comments.
I have one, Mayor. This was related to a water shutoff a couple weeks ago. We turned off an account for non-payment. The person made an online payment. Then later that evening was upset that we don't respond after hours to late payment turn-ons, and so subsequently expressed the frustrations and what have you. We passed that along, and we thought this would be a great little, again, PSA about the importance of having emergency water at a home, because while this time it was for non-payment, it could have been a main break or other issue with the utility system, and the importance of whether it's some drinking water for yourself, maybe clean up after work, pets, etc. As we're heading into the winter season, pipes could freeze, so having a bit of water on hand is a great thing. And also wanted to point out and mention that we also are very mindful of when we do shutoffs, so we typically do either a Tuesday or Wednesday, so we have time to give notice, people come in, and it's not bookend into a weekend or holiday. As such, we always do it at the end of the month, and this month is Thanksgiving, which is we're closed Thursday and Friday, so we're pushing shutoffs to the following week, so people have adequate time to make arrangements or what have you, and also not impact their Thanksgiving plans. And same with Christmas/New Year's, because of how that's falling this year, we're pushing it actually to the first week in January, well, actually the second week in January after the New Year's, so people can get through the holidays, again, make arrangements if they need to, and we're not going to shut them off during the holiday season.
Thanks for that report. Let me just ask one question to follow up to it. How long was the water off when it got shut off? Was it offered to?
I think it was a Wednesday, so we turned it off Wednesday. I'll call it 10 a.m.
So
I think she paid sometime around 8 p.m. and it was back on around 9 a.m., 8:30 a.m.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very responsive, and also the information about the upcoming, colder weather and the need to have people to take some precautions there. Thank you. Public safety report. Chief, nice to have you here again. Always nice to have you.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. It's good to see everyone. So just a quick overview of what the month of October brought us. We're down to, we had 4 reported assaults, which is down from the 8 the previous period. Nothing else really is standing out in the report except for traffic accidents. We're still experiencing a marked height of traffic accidents along the 238 corridor. I'll talk more about that in a minute. We had 2 stolen vehicles reported. Both of those were recovered. One was recovered within a few hours of the theft, and the other one was recovered a few days later in the city of Portland. In your new report, you may notice this new reported crime outline.
Yeah.
So this is to kind of give you a 30,000-foot view of property crime trends, person crime trends, and just general trends that we've seen over a marked period. And as I'm sure you can see, property and person crimes have been trending down throughout this report. And then what we label society crime has pretty much stayed steady. And then on the back of it, if you want more of a breakdown, I'm sure you can see there's actual specific numbers and date ranges to go through. Another thing on your main activity report sheet that has the kind of graph showing dispatch calls for service and self-initiated calls for service. There's been an obvious decline since August of 2019 in self-initiated calls for service. And I just want to talk about that a little bit. We've been experiencing some staffing issues, as you all know. It's very exciting now. The county council has given us some money to bolster our human resources and hiring. And we've had a significant increase in hired people going through the process. So we're expecting to have a lot more deputies on the road in the next couple of months. Where this affects this is a lot of these self-initiated calls or when we used to do the traffic enforcement missions, the specific missions, and we'll be back up to staffing to where we can staff those much more frequently. Specifically for our city, the 238 corridor, where we're experiencing all the exhaust braking and the traffic accidents, we'll be able to be much more proactive in responding to that. And then some of the dips you'll see in the graph here, it's, that we're in the dark time of the year again, the rainy time of the year. Naturally, self-initiated activity is going to take a slump. And in the summer, when we're experiencing much more crime and reported crime, that's when we'll have a higher self-initiated activity to address those trends. So that's what you'll see on that if you're wondering whether it's the peaks and valleys on there. Other than that, I didn't really there's nothing really that stood out this last month to report to you all as far as significant calls for service, unless you have any questions.
I have a question. It wasn't within our city, but I think you might have some insight. There was a lot of law enforcement activity at Reynolds High School. I think it was a couple weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago. Do you know anything about that?
I think it was, I don't think it was, I think I know what you're talking about. I don't think it was something actually happening in the school. I think it was somebody with a gun in the neighborhood around. And then we always go to precaution to protect the school and students.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. Because it was, all the cars were at the school.
if there's anything that happens around a school, that's our number one priority is to make sure
Gotcha.
the students are protected. So.
Okay.
I did have one more thing to ask the mayor and council. As we know, Las Posadas is coming up for us here, which we're excited to participate again once again. But I was hoping to ask if the city would be willing to provide funds for this year. Looking at 20 to 25 is usually what we do, and so that'd be about $250. So if that's something that the city would be willing to do, we can pick them up and take care of all that. But.
Well, I certainly know that we've done that in the past. So let me just, we have a thumbs up, council.
Yeah, I agree.
Keep it going. That's a great community outreach from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. So,
we're really excited that's inside this year. So,
yeah. Councilor Clark, I see you. I see you.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't see it for just a few minutes ago. So thank you. We got a thumbs up. Unanimous.
Excellent. Thank you all. Any questions?
Well, be safe out there. And
Great to see you all.
yeah, nice to see you. Hey, in the new format, I wanted to say that I liked it better.
It's more visually.
Yeah, it was sure
Yeah.
easier to read.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good.
Take care.
You bet. We met with the sheriff, the mayors did this last week, and she was meeting with us to talk about just what our chief just talked to us about, staffing and hiring. And fortunately, if you followed it at the Multnomah County Commission, did allocate almost $1 million to help get back their human resource department. And for what I understood, Chief, they were operating with like maybe 2 or 3 people trying to process deputies, process potential deputies. And this should help a bunch. So we're happy for that budget increase. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we got review of the bills paid. Any questions there? Consent agenda, we have the city council minutes from October 22nd. I'd like to pull the city events, the 9th annual Pumpkin Fest off of there, because there is some discussion, as Greg laid out in his staff report. And I think it's, if you went down through there, it's probably warrants a few minutes here for us to talk about that. So can I have a motion to remove that from the consent agenda?
I motion to remove that Pumpkin Fest.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. We'll take the Pumpkin Fest off the consent agenda. Now can I have a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the amendment. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. All right, Greg, could you lead us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't have a presentation for it, so just
Right.
bear with the discussion. But we kind of built off of, so this is our 9th annual. Early Pumpkin Fest looked a little bit different, but this was a generally kind of a choose your own adventure event, changed up during COVID. So after COVID allowed us time to kind of reinvent it a little bit, some trick-or-treating activities, and we built off that theme for this current year. And I think how we laid it out was more optimal last year. A lot of crowding around the plaza, was hard to get around. But certainly, I think played very well to the community surrounding region, even despite the heavy rains at times. I think we 1,800 people, more or less, because we knew we had all the goodie bags, and those were gone by 12:30. Pumpkins, the last pumpkin, which was 9 pallets worth, was gone at 10:10.
Oh my gosh.
So we kind of can gauge a little bit just based on what we see, and then also kind of on the stuff we knew we had that handed out. The activities were really, people liked them, whether we had a little putt-putt that was built in-house. We also had we rented out, they called carnival games. So it was like archery and inflatable axe throwing. The petting zoo was really popular, something we brought back. Lots and lots of refreshments and beverages. But again, people could kind of choose their own adventure, because I think we get people that come to event, get the free things, enjoy it, kind of 15 minutes, kind of see it, get their stuff, they go off through their day. Others want to more experience kind of everything we have to offer. And I think this time we actually had a lot more people stay an hour or better, kind of because people were in costume. Some were more notable than others, like, oh, the alien's still here, or Garfield's still here. The pet costume contest really played out well, was very popular, both I think with Teresa's Pet Supply that helped sponsor and support that, as well as people who came with their families and pets dressed up. So it was really an event that could be seen as, by some, maybe just a quick giveaway, a pumpkin and some candy, and you leave, versus, we actually were able to connect with a number of people, whether it was at the city booth, walking around, or we had, I think, 18 places show up. We had about 25 scheduled, but some dropped with the weather and some other things. But engaging, whether it was Mount Hood Community College, actually Free Geek was actually kind of neat, because there's been a meeting going on coordinating Free Geek, maybe for some regional computer stuff, and they were really impressed with the turnout. And so having some of these organizations at our events get some to see and talk with people from out here that they don't normally get to. So it's kind of a win-win for us. It's another booth or an activity for someone to go to and enjoy, and it's also showing these other entities that may be more Portland focused for right now. They get to see and talk to people out here, firsthand. So having that kind of style event has just been nice and kind of fitting. I'm trying not to lead in too much of the Easter egg hunt, which will be shortly, but when you look at our events, the night out, that's very much a nice summer kind of feel. You got the hot dogs, the music, now a lot of the service providers, the vendors, the public safety aspects. Pumpkin Fest, a nice fall time event, fall theme. There's pumpkin, cider, all that fun, good stuff. Tree lighting's a nice winter holiday feel good thing. And so Easter could be that spring kind of festival, if you would. But we'll get in that detail later, but that's kind of the theming of it, that our events kind of offer. I call it enrichment, call it what you want. Short of then we have cleanup days, some of the food stuff, but that's more of a direct service. But when you look at all of our events, they kind of offer a lot of variety and options for variety of age groups and interests in the community and events.
Council, if you saw the executive summary here, there are items to consider. If you've had a chance to look at those,
For Pumpkin Fest or the Easter event?
Pumpkin Fest, items to consider.
I don't have that in front of me.
Is that,
I don't have that report in front of me because it's on consent.
well, I got it. Oh, you don't, I didn't, Caroline just sent it to me, but, no, I got, yeah, you got, yeah. So on the back, there's items to consider. And that's why I thought that we don't have to decide tonight, but if anybody has any comments on those items to consider, the first one is pre-bagged candy. Okay? That ringing a bell?
Yeah.
Okay. And,
Is this on the part where it shows the net balance of $190.91? Is that where you're speaking of, Mayor?
yeah, if you look on that page, there's a section there that 1, 2, 3, 4 items to consider.
Oh, thank you. I got it.
Okay. So that's just what I'd be asking tonight, so that we can send, staff would at least get an initial opinion on some of that, if you have an ideas.
I would be in favor of removing the baking to then use those funds to something different. I remember when we implemented the baking items in these bags was during COVID as a means to provide take-home activities. So it was more of that, opportunity for family engagement. Looking at what Pumpkin Fest has developed and turned out to be. I mean, you guys mentioned it. Even us at Play East, we prepared 400 goodie bags. Probably right around noon, we were out of 400 goodie bags. So needing more resources to provide other on-site activities, I think, is really the direction I would really highly consider going. So I think that would be my take on that.
Other comments?
Yeah, I agree with Jairo with more activities kind of going back to, it's like a in and out for majority of people, making it more of in-house where they're just more involved in the different activities that we have going on instead of just picking up a free baking kit, a carving kit, pumpkin. And then I'm like, all right, I got my shopping list and I'm
Let's
out.
go.
It's just,
Yeah.
but like the petting zoo, that's a great idea. It's something different. And people don't typically have that. And they're spending more time having a costume contest. They'll stay till the end to see if they win.
Yeah.
Well, it was online, so they voted later, but
But the things like that, this is this interactive.
it's an activity to do when you gather.
Councilor Smith?
I agree.
I do
The,
like,
Go ahead, Councilor Clark.
I do like number 3, where we could definitely set up the traffic control into the Reynolds School District property. I know that they're generally not there on the weekends, so if we had volunteers, I'd definitely be one of those people that would volunteer for that. And direct traffic down that way, all we need is the signage.
We've talked at a staff level about that for some of our larger events, and actually the thought was actually to pay a professional like a D&H or Northwest Flagging to actually do like the official set out the signs and have the trained professionals. Because looking at Pumpkin Fest, that was, I think, a strain for some families and a stressor entering the event, and that's not a way you want to welcome your guests where they're already a little bit stressed out. So it's definitely, I think, something we're looking at for Not so much maybe the night out, because that one has a lot more people walking to it and more centralized, but certainly for, the Easter event, this event, and other larger ones at the park, needing to do a little bit more for that parking management.
Yeah, it's, thank you, Councilor Clark, for that. I had that underlined myself. I was leaving, I've told Councilor Rio Campos this, and Greg too, I was leaving and I had a vest on. So I started walking out down into the parking lot, and next thing I know, people are asking me, I've become the parking director.
He's
So-
on-site ballet.
Yeah, so yeah, valet parking.
got all
But
the
anyway,
fancies.
it became pretty apparent we need help down there.
You could have made some tips.
You know what? I was trying real
He
hard.
couldn't find which Honda
And they were
was for
mad-
which
just-
key.
They were just mad at me because I didn't have a place to park. Anyway, and the last one I had underlined was just are there any cost-saving considerations for this event for such a large purchase? And that is a tent that we would own or rent. And so I don't have an opinion on that other than make it as simple and easy for staff as you are.
I don't, this is Oregon. It rains.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I know, I'm not saying it is.
Yeah.
It's just one of the considerations.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion, that make it work for the staff in setting this thing up.
Yeah.
And I know those large tents are,
They are
and
very
then
expensive.
like, it's not a three-person job. So whatever works, that's my opinion on that.
Anybody have thoughts of moving the event date? So far earlier in October seems to be a little bit better weather. Not that the weather deter a lot of participants, but that could be a consideration to then not having to either purchase or rent tents. I think
I like that.
we could consider doing it one more year this way and seeing kind of how that weather really works out. Just
One part of it can also kind of vary where Halloween falls, because it's always kind of the Saturday before Halloween. And sometimes when Halloween's been on, a Sunday or a Monday, people have already kind of done their activities, or you're competing with a lot more activities versus it was on the following Wednesday, so a little further out, or just the weather-wise. This was the first of, we've had rain during the event day, but never during the event. So this was the first time we've actually had rain during the event. But yeah, we're certainly, as we think about next year's event, open to looking at the calendar.
Good. Anything else?
Yeah.
Any other
And
comments?
you got to consider the pumpkins too. Carve those beauties. They sit
All right.
I mean, some people don't even, I don't carve, my kids and I don't carve them for longevity. We just paint.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this may be helpful for the staff. Thanks, council, for just taking a minute of this item so they can get a little bit of direction for next year. And Carolina, as usual, that was a very well-done event, well orchestrated, smooth, and when we're hitting 1,500 plus people and engaging them is really a sign of a successful event. So thanks for your work on that.
Just last thing I'd like, I think the idea of the layout really worked to the benefit of the space. And so I think at the same time, spreading the event out didn't look and feel as crowded as the year prior. And so that was a strategic move.
Yeah, there is one little whoopsie from a trunk or treat provider who got there a little late and kind of just got stuck and kind of blocked a bit of the plaza. But we made it work, but that was more of a whoopsie than a feature.
Okay. So you guys got a year to do, figure this out. Next item on the agenda is the parks. Are we on the parks? Greg?
No, the restroom
No, the restroom, resolution 27-2024, restroom construction.
And I just want to make sure, Councilor Clark, can you see the presentation screen?
Well, once you put it up, I'll be able to see it.
It is up. That's why I was asking, because I was afraid we couldn't use the Zoom app, had a bug in it, so we're doing it through the browser, and I wasn't sure if it was functioning properly. So you cannot see the restroom bid award screen?
No, I cannot, but I can read I can read the agenda though.
Let me see if I can.
This is an action item tonight too, council.
What about now?
Yes, I can see that now.
Perfect. All right. Yes, bid award. And it is a bid award, not just a bid update. So quick history, again, the current restroom facility is nearing 20 years old. We've already talked that it's not quite optimal for a number of reasons. So we plan to replace it last fiscal year with an 8-unit single occupancy facility. Design approval was done in April. We got our permits approved in May. Unfortunately, the bid efforts that we did previously were just in excess of the budget. So it was directed to try to rebid this again in kind of an off season. Again, this is an exterior rendering of that facility. Kind of see the playground in the background. So it kind of adds doors on both sides. There'll be a drinking fountain actually on this portion, so the south side of the building. Again, little aerial layout just for orientation, the little plaza feature, playground, all the little doors, ADA pathway, which will connect to our new ADA pathway from this plaza. Again, a layout. So, I mean, not the biggest restrooms are about 7 feet by 8 feet. So bigger than an airplane, but not necessarily something going to lounge around in, but enough to, use the facilities, wash your hands, go about your business. I showed this rendering because we did put a lot of exterior lighting, both to shine on the ground, a couple spotlights to get a little further out. So the whole area around the restroom will be well lit. So again, we originally bid last March. That low bid was in excess of budget, so we rebid this fall, and we had 7 bids ranging from the low bid of $536,000 to almost $679,000. That low bid was 2KG Contractors, Inc. We went through reference checking, some other due diligence. People had nice things to say, completed a wide variety of projects. They actually like to self-perform a lot of the work, so not a whole list of subs and things, and that's neither here or there. It's just kind of nice when you got one person to deal with. And they estimated the completion by May. We were hopeful maybe it might be a little sooner than that, maybe for the Easter event, but certainly they said by May they anticipate full completion. Because there are still some unknowns with any construction project. While their bid was $536,000, we recommended a do not exceed of $550,000, which is the full budgeted amount this year. While we spent some last fiscal year as part of that budget discussion and things, we kind of replenished it to the full $550,000, thinking it'll add some lighting and other amenities to the park. So that is the 2-minute version of this project, but again, you've all been familiar with it. Any questions?
Any questions, council? Is there a motion? Mark, Councilor Clark, are you there? Yeah. Any
Yes,
questions?
I am. What's happened is that I've lost the screen for some reason.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know what happened as soon as it turned off or something, but I can still hear you. So we'll just keep going.
Okay, any questions? If there's no questions, do I have a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 27-2024, awarding the restroom replacement project to 2KG Constructors, Inc., with an amount not to exceed $550,000.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Greg. It's been a big project getting that bid down to where we can afford it, and it was a good move for us to delay it.
yeah, I think the hope is now that it's awarded, we'll schedule some pre-construction meetings with them, contracting. I think their goal was actually get started with demo before the end of the year. So, I mean, they plan to get moving on it, so.
Fabulous. Yeah. All right. Next item on the agenda is our discussion on the Easter egg hunt, upcoming Easter egg hunt.
So, Counselor, can you see this?
Yes, I can. I'm back up again.
Okay, we'll see how long it lasts. So this is something we talked very briefly about at your last council meeting, asking if you'd be willing to consider other ideas, components for the Easter egg hunt or Easter egg event. And part of the question is, well, why would we look at it kind of doing an Easter egg event or Easter hunt, a gathering, whatever you want to call it? It's very common. People know what it is. So we're kind of walking through what staff has seen. There's, I think, just concerns. I don't want to call them issues. It's things for you all's consideration and what kind of event features you want to put together. So you're certainly able to say, we want these things, go plan that event versus yep, go ahead and plan an event with these things, if that makes sense. Like, this isn't approving the event plan for the Easter event, but it's rather putting out the ideas and concepts for us to put together that formal event plan that we'll bring back to you. So we'll go through a brief history. Again, some of those issues or things that aren't quite optimal, and then the additional concepts. So when I say brought back in 1988, the city had one back in the 50s, early 60s, then paused for reasons unknown, and then brought back in 1988. Early years featured a wider age range than what we currently offer. So it was basically infant to 12-year-olds, had eggs, candy, prizes, started transition more of just early years actually were a hunt. They'd go in the kind of the grove and hide eggs or place eggs in little low branches and things. It's definitely an egg gathering now. There's no hunting. And we started really capping and limiting the age ranges, mostly due to concerns about small children being trampled by other people's parents, teenagers being a little too rough. So we kind of started hammering that down. In 2010, we added our first special needs hunt area, seeing that there were children in wheelchair, walker, mobility devices, and trying to allow space for that. And then 2012, I was there at the meeting. I remember it-ish, can't remember the impetus, but it's basically we're going to have the biggest, the best Easter event in the realm. Forget East County, we're going to have the biggest, best event. And frankly, I think we accomplished that.
I think so. Yes.
In 2017, we actually removed the prizes. It was one of those things that it was, what value add did it add? And it ended up, it was kind of diminishing. And then after we brought the event back from COVID, started having sensory areas or needs addressed. So kind of a quieter area earlier in the day. So that was year before last. Here's some early years. So these are photos from '89. Believe it is our grove in that eastern portion of the park. The trees look a little. But yeah, I mean, it was certainly a neighborhood small city event. You maybe had 200 people total. This is last year. While there certainly is something to be said for, having a large and large crowd, it kind of goes, what's the purpose of the event? And so when you look at the issues and concerns, part of it is actually it's a very timed event versus like I said, our other events are choose your own adventure, show up when you want. We do have a start and end time, but generally the event lasts the whole time. With hunts going off, essentially every 10 minutes, someone could miss their hunt by a couple minutes. A common problem is a child will start in 3 or 4-year-olds, move on to 5 and 6, and finish in the 7 to 9. So they're hunting multiple areas. It's happened a few times, not so much lately, but with that many people, they've known to rush the field and the hunts go off at once. And so if families were watching their 3 and 4-year-old hunt, but they were going to hunt in 7 to 9, it's all gone. So those are issues and concerns. We get a lot of lost children and parents. So sometimes we have the child, but not a parent. And sometimes we get a parent without a child. We do eventually reunite everybody, but it can be stressful for whether it's the child, the parent, not the best guest experience. And generally, this one does get the most complaints and concerns from our guests. A lot of them, safety, crowd side behaviors of others, things beyond our control. We also get some, mostly for smaller kids, there aren't direct activities. If you're not quite 3 years old, okay, you can get your picture with the bunny, but that's about it. And a lot of the activities do have longer lines because it's either face painting or get your picture with the bunny. That's about it. So those have long lines, and then you're just kind of waiting for your hunt to go off. So, looking at this event purpose, I mean, I think I wasn't here in '88 to run the event, but I think it was hey, let's bring a community event back together. It feels good. It certainly has over the several decades. And as we've added other events to our schedule, it kind of does that direct service or enrichment. And enrichment is, multiple activities, service organizations, other, it's kind of one-stop shop. Oh, learn about the college, learn about this program, learn about the service provider. The Easter egg hunt is a large regional draw. It's a big regional event. I think if you were to distill it down, you gather eggs and candy. That's what it is. There's not a lot of other going on. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it just is. And, an idea would be to make it something more similar to Pumpkin Fest, so you wouldn't have necessarily timed egg hunts. You can certainly still have the city, instead of handing out little pumpkin bags of candy, hand out little bags of, a dozen candy-filled eggs. But bring in other service providers, event supporters with a booth. They have, their handouts, candy, maybe support an activity, multiple photo op areas, with the bunny, their backgrounds, and then multiple different activities, refreshments, just kind of make it just more rounded than just a simple egg gathering event for children of these age ranges. It's a family event, maybe bring grandparents and everyone can partake in the activities, photos. So that's kind of the thought, and it does mirror some of our other events like night out, tree lighting, et cetera. So that's what staff kind of tossed out there for your consideration and adaptation, for your consideration and discussion.
Okay. All right, well, we've heard the Pumpkin Fest. We debriefed that. This is now a chance for us to be thinking about the egg hunt. So I'm just going to open it up for counselors to make any comments or initial thoughts. We're not planning it right now. We're just saying, yeah, this is probably something worth considering.
I think the Easter egg hunt, like how we've been doing, was traditional. But I think we've lost the spirit of what it was. It's for the kids, and it's become more of a competitive who gets the most eggs. So I think I like these ideas. It brings back the spirit, but parents do like to take pictures of their kids, whether it's photo stations or with the Easter Bunny. So I do like that approach of just incorporating more activities, making it different, and we can be different.
I agree. Being on both sides of this as a parent participant and being involved in the event, I mean, it is a huge safety concern. I mean, having that massive of a crowd, I mean, I don't think other cities that put on an event get this type of a crowd. And so it's really, walking around, with the bags of candies that we get, you see kids that are not having the optimal time because, they weren't able to get an egg. So I think this is a pivotal moment where we can transition and we've seen something that kind of works to a better, I think, to better serve our community and like yours is saying, what's the purpose, right? Is it just to get as many eggs as you can, or is it really to create something? And I think our community has really enjoyed, especially the aspect of us partnering up with other partners, nonprofits, other resources around in the area that they don't know about. And so bringing them on board and having them have a presence here just provides twofold. The provider gets to see our community and hear them directly, just like you mentioned, Greg, and then our community can directly put a face to these organizations as well and say, oh, I didn't know you guys had resources that I can use and things of that nature. So I would be totally in favor to doing something a little different.
Thank you, Counselor. Others?
Yeah, just a couple things. How would these changes affect the special needs and the areas of our hunt?
Well, since I think, and I'll just use this specific, if we do it like Pumpkin Fest where there isn't a hunt, they're certainly able to come as their families, and if they need to step away because it's a little too excited in an area, they can come back later, find a quiet spot. As busy as Pumpkin Fest was, you could just go behind our building. We have a picnic table, and I mean, it was dead quiet. If you walked back there, you didn't know all the activities over there. Plus, there's still the inside of this building. We kind of left part of it open for the restrooms, but also the couches, so it was, again, kind of a quiet spot to, if you needed a moment to recenter, get away from the crowd. So I think it might even be a little more accommodating. I don't have children with special needs, whether it's sensory, mobility, but I believe because it's not hunt and you're separating hunts or other activities, you're just kind of included in the festivities in general.
And then adding these petting zoo and carnival games and everything, how would that affect the cost of our budget on the hunt?
Buying 30,000+ eggs isn't cheap.
We're still going to probably have to.
We'll get eggs. We were pegging, okay, you can give each kid 12 eggs, 1,000 kids, 12,000 eggs. It's almost a third of the cost of what we've been spending. And so we can use the other, few $1,000s towards those other activities, enrichments. So we're just kind of reallocating instead of all the money going towards eggs, we're putting money towards activities.
Okay, I have some ideas for you, and that is to have more than one Easter bunny, and then have that photo op that includes where parents can be there in a safe area where they can have their camera set up to where their children pick up their 12 eggs and then move on to an Easter bunny or to the petting zoo, carnival style games and face painting and play East activities, and then have other parents come in and do the same thing. So where they're not, in the past, we've had, I've kind of measured it out where we've had a 500-foot line waiting for just one Easter bunny. So if we had more than one Easter bunny, you could have it set up to where you're moving along in, say, 3 or 4 Easter bunnies along with these photo op areas.
I think, I like the concept of that, and I think we call Easter Bunny and Friends, because, there is only the one Easter Bunny.
Yeah, I was gonna
we don't
say
want
that.
to.
The kids that believe.
And that's going to come to a cost increase
Yeah,
also.
I think, I know that sounds great. We can have different photos,
We have
sections and
a
props.
bear costume already.
I've seen him.
And I mean, there's also a consideration of, again, moving away from a traditional event of sitting down, being in one stationary where maybe they walk around.
And I think because Pumpkin Fest this year, we had a number of different, call them vendors. They weren't vending things per se. It really did spread the crowd around. And so you really didn't get any line of size for any period of time. But I also understand, the activities and the things will draw a lot of people. So you need to have a lot going on to keep it spread around.
I just know kids do believe in the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
We're just talking about Santa
Well, it might
and Elf
be,
on the
yeah.
Shelf, so I don't want to take that away from the ones that believe.
I mean, we understand that, the true Easter Bunny, because, they hand out their helpers, but you only get one helper per event. And Easter Bunny is, very busy the day before Easter.
Yeah,
Just like Santa. Sometimes, Santa has his helpers before Christmas.
most definitely.
We probably better not push back against, more than one Easter Bunny or more than one Santa. But we can certainly accommodate people in different settings. And I think Councilor Clark's comment resonates with that too.
It was also what I liked about that comment was we can probably get little tripods for cell phones that people set their cell phone timer so the whole family can be in the photos and in the background. So we already kind of have that set up. So we don't have to ask a stranger, ask a volunteer. We just kind of already had it pre-made with set your phone here, set your timer, get your
Yeah.
photo.
That's neat.
Excuse me. I really like the idea of what we've been doing with the Pumpkin Fest and now this discussion. Our goal number 8 is intentional community engagement. And I think that these conversations we're having is really centered around how intentionally are we going to engage with our community. And I think this discussion is about engagement and having vendors here that can broaden the scope of the event and really be intentional about what we're doing and when we bring people together. So I think it fits very nicely into our intentional community engagement goal too. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I think we got a thumbs up on this too.
So what we'll plan then is we'll gather and we'll start costing out different options and alternatives, and we'll bring back a formal event plan for consideration with everything we've heard in mind. And I think certainly we're still very mindful that, a traditional egg event is important and has meaning. It's also our event is getting to draw so many people. It's hard to have a meaningful egg gathering event with 2,000 people, but I think we can still offer meaning and take your eggs home, or go to a different park or feature and have a little gathering later. It doesn't preclude that, but certainly I think it opens up more possibilities.
I mean, this is just a wild thought, but I mean, an opportunity to also engage like our economic side is if we did a citywide scavenger hunt. And so partnering up maybe with Sire Equity, Walmart, our local businesses, and pull something from there where it's very, low barrier, especially for staff having to maybe put something together, but then again, engage our other aspects of our community. I think, even our trails within the park, a lot of folks don't really know that they're back there and then until they get told or shown. And so just amplifying, again, what the amenities we currently have, once the wetlands get developed and have an opportunity there, doing something there as well. I think it's something kind of out there, but I think something that we can consider moving forward.
Well, that's, I think we've had pretty good discussion here.
I think so.
Caroline, if you can run with that. And broadening it out to our economic community too, and businesses and some, see how that kind of pencils out. Next item then, if there's no other questions, we're on to the Parks meeting recap. Greg?
Okay, just going to want to check. Counselor, can you see that screen?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. So this is just a recap of the Parks meeting from last week. So I'm not intending to replicate the entire hour presentation and discussion, but hit the highlights. And so you all get to hear what their outcomes were, discussion points, etc. But I do want to highlight some highlights, and that was our summer park usage. So 81 facility reservations, the bulk of which were the picnic shelter right there in front of the playground. We also had multi-field reservations, 3 amphitheater reservations, only 1 gazebo. And that's kind of been a downward trend for that gazebo. It kind of lacks, it just lacks. We didn't get to discuss this with the Parks Commission. We did mention that area kind of might need some attention of what's its purpose, the gazebo and the area to the north of it. Just so happened a few days after the Parks meeting, we met with a company that does kind of active park recreation. They do like skate parks, pump tracks, which think not mini BMX, but kind of like a little BMX bike facility. They were opening a new park in Sandy, meeting with cities, say, hey, let's look at your facilities. So we knew we had a skate park in our master plan. They came out and said, yeah, you can do a little skate park here, but we're actually more impressed with the area by the gazebo. And could that be kind of a nature pump track, which again, kind of a bicycle facility. So didn't discuss that with Parks because it happened after that meeting, but just kind of plant the concept, and we'll talk with Parks in the future. And as we kind of need some discussion on that kind of gazebo north, what that area is going to be, because gazebo south towards the ball field is a great picnic area. It gets used a lot, but kind of to the north, it really doesn't. Back on track though, most of the reservations were for birthday parties, family gatherings, and a handful of baby showers. 3 events held at the park, not run by the city. One was Run for the Red, that's Emilio Inc., and that supports especially teen mental health and mental health awareness. We had World No Tobacco Day and a book signing. So really a variety of events there. And in most cases, all of our facilities were reserved at no cost. And this does not include all the Play East activities, whether it's the camps, the courses, and the summer lunch program, which served nearly 1,000 meals this past summer right here in the picnic shelter. Splash pad, we highlighted this at the last meeting, but basically use just over 750,000 gallons. You runs 35 gallons per minute, so you take that to 366 hours or nearly 4,400 button presses. We were able to work controller to bookend it, so it only can operate between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Not that I think we had a lot before or after those times, but now that kind of follows with the general park operating hours. So a great amenity, used a lot.
Yeah.
We gave them a park project updates. We did say the restroom the bid award was in 2 days. You now already have the update on that, so I don't need to discuss that one. So the CDBG grant, that's for the enhanced picnic area and ADA ramp right here in this upper grove. So that'll connect this current City Hall pad to the lower part of the park and the restrooms. The design will be finished by December 18th. Becky and I had a meeting with the engineer last week, go over some elements, so we can get it bid out in January for construction by June 30. And again, this is the area we're talking about. So it'll kind of come between the splash pad and the trees. We'll put a little couple benches here, some picnic tables, the larger ones through here. This little tree that was most likely planted by a squirrel or a bird, it will go away as part of this project. It's not a healthy tree. It's not going to survive. So the path wraps around through there and then kind of parallels the drive area, and then we'll connect with the new ADA ramp to the bathroom, and we'll actually put some concrete and make the sign feature a sign feature.
As in mimicking the pyramid, like the basalt out in front?
No. So we're not going to change this sign structure, but we'll put concrete around it. So it's connected to the path. So it encourages people to read the sign.
Gotcha.
And we'll update the signs to reflect more of our updated sign components. This current pathway will remain, or most of it will remain. We have to regrade part of it. Again, we'll add more picnic where a picnic used to be. This table actually has to go because it interferes with the new ADA pathway. But again, actually, there will be a net positive of tables and larger family tables in this area with the barbecue pits. So as people are enjoying the splash pad, they can enjoy this area for picnicking and barbecuing. Again, we've kept you up to date on our wetland park. So we have a total of $762,000 available for the project. The bulk of that in grants, $250,000 Nature and Neighborhoods grant, our $392,000 local share, and a $20,000 community enhancement grant. So what we're at now is we're getting the delineation updated. It was too old to use, so it's being updated with an updated archaeological survey, so we can just move forward with construction. We're actually working with the Grand Ron to do the full approximately 10 acre of the open space area, not just R5. We know we have some ideas for maybe that other portion, so we're seeing what is and isn't viable, at least ecologically, in that section. Again, the project will work on restoring the wetlands. We will work with organizations to do what we're calling like native plants, ones that indigenous people used and were prominent in this area. So we'll have educational signage and things for that. And engagement on the unrestricted space, what they want for gateways, that signage, et cetera. And that will be probably more springtime. We'll get into that portion once we know more what the project will and won't entail. Again, this is the current rendering for it. It may change a little bit based on the delineation and the permitting for this project, because it does have to go through state lands. And again, for orientation, Wood Village Boulevard, Errata Road, so that half moon as it kind of cuts through the wetlands, elevated boardwalk. And it's this area that we're aware of is the unrestricted space because it's not considered wetland, so there could be picnicking or other kind of passive recreation there. But that's where we're thinking the outreach would, what do people want there? What would be meaningful? So again, project is ongoing, and we hope kind of to be able to start it late this summer, like July, August time, the dry season, to start at least clearing things, maybe do community planting days, that kind of thing. So a lot more to come, but it's in process.
That's all, is that all elevated?
The boardwalk is all elevated, yeah.
And how about the area there that would be where you're talking about a bench?
So this area, so as it gets to right here, this stops becoming elevated and is more just at that grade. So just where you see kind of the more bold lines is where it's elevated.
Okay. All right, so on the same grade so that, again, there's not steps to go down.
Correct. It's kind of just at grade, of plateaus right there.
Okay, thanks.
We brought this discussion back to parks. It's something we've been talking about, I'll just say, for a year. We had options and alternatives for new signage right here last May. Parks didn't like any of them, so we went back and thought of new options. And after thinking of the options, we thought, well, what's really the purpose? So we kind of proposed that to the Parks Commission. Is this signage? If it's signage, what's the signage for? Is it art? Is it a park feature? Is it just kind of leave it alone until something kind of just an opportunity presents itself? Unanimously, the parks had a great discussion. We showed renderings of these different options. They said, you know what, just leave it alone. Maybe put that money towards a different park project and, into an accumulating fund. But right now, just leave it alone. And kind of looking at the history of this, it was City Hall was still new. Splash Pad, a lot of features. I think it was natural to think directory. We've been here a while. People know what's here and kind of know, oh, there's parking every which way. So yeah, Park said don't do anything, so we're not going to do anything. That's not to say we still won't be looking at all of our park signs and making sure they're reflective of park expectations, park features, et cetera. Just won't be a feature right here.
Looks pretty good, natural.
Yeah.
It does.
Had a great discussion on the community garden. So again, for a reminder, this was added to this year's budget to bring back a community garden, and there's $12,000 in the budget to help with that. So we talked with the parks about general location, the amenities, and what they would or wouldn't want as part of it. We didn't get into really any of the policies behind the garden, reservations, expectations, et cetera. That'll be something that we're interested in, but also needs to involve a very, robust council discussion. But in general, we kind of highlighted these locations because it's what the city owns. So again, this is Hawthorne. It's right off Hawthorne Avenue, and this doesn't work because water's not great, access isn't great. It's just not great. By the Edible Grove, so City Hall would be in this upper left corner. This is way back in the Edible Grove. We didn't think that would actually conflict with the intent of the Edible Grove. It's an open public Edible Grove. You don't want necessarily then privately held garden beds intermixed with that. So where it landed was behind City Hall, and what we didn't want to do if it was behind City Hall is impede whether it's field activities, or as we've seen, we've hosted kind of indoor-outdoor events on our back lawn. We didn't want it to impede that ability, whether it's for our events, private events. But in looking at the space, which my screen just went away. So in looking at the space, we can actually, the trail tug is right tight against the property line. We could actually move it a bit to the east, create a buffer between the neighbors and, field activities, walkers, et cetera. And actually there would be room for, community garden that is then expandable over time that really choose to be popular and sustainable. And so we showed a couple different options to parks. They like this concept with some revisions. They didn't much care for the steep, turns and wanted more of a gentle swooping back into the existing trail, which makes a lot of sense. So generally it would be start off as a 12-plot garden, fenced in, and I'll get some pictures of that. Kind of in this general area, relocate the path around it, connecting back to the plaza. So they like the idea of just natural wooden boxes that would be resilient to, rot and everything else. But of two varying sizes, one size about this height, kind of that traditional garden box height, but one maybe closer to countertop height, maybe not that high. So if people had problems bending down or maybe in a mobility device could still, touch the dirt and garden without a lot of bending. So we thought kind of a mix and match of size or height options. For fencing, they like something like this style. Again, probably won't be quite as tall, but again, kind of that 4x4 post with 2x4 treated wood, but I don't want to call it chicken wire, but some sort of then other barrier for smaller critters, et cetera, or just field activities to prevent stuff from popping in the garden that shouldn't be there. A little gate and entry features, signage, of course, but that matches the aesthetics of the park in City Hall. So that was a general discussion. So we're pricing options and thinking about that, and we'll be working probably with Outgrowing Hunger. They manage gardens in Gresham to help put together some garden policies for council and parks consideration with the goal to launch springtime.
Good. Greg, we got funds to do that?
$12,000.
Good. Good.
And I think there are some grant opportunities that if it presents themselves, we'll certainly go after and see if we're successful. And then the last big discussion Parks had was about the playground replacement. And so this one again got brought up at budget time, trying to start an accumulating fund for its replacement within the next 5 or so years. So the current playground was installed in 1999. Average lifespan is 20 to 30 years, so we're right in the middle of that, and it served it very well. And so we talked to the parks. It wasn't about necessarily what exactly do you want, but what's important to you as parks in talking about and planning for the replacement of this facility. So questions we asked, do you redesign the full layout of the playground area? Do you generally keep stuff in this existing location? So I have pictures here, but we have like a tot lot area with smaller stuff for smaller kids, different swing sets in the big play structure with pathways. You want to blow all that out or generally keep within the same general footprint. We do have some smaller elements, spring toys, teeter-totters. You can want to keep those if we can, or just, wholly new. And then what kind of theming, if any, would you want? In terms of overall expansion to the playground, there aren't good options. You have a parking lot that's below grade to the north, our very popular picnic shelter to the south, a restroom to the west, and again, a bunch of groves and other elevation changes to the east. So generally the footprint needs to be what it is, but we asked parks, do you want it generally how it's laid out, or we want to look at something different? And they said generally how it's laid out is fine. So this, again, current photos, we have the big structure here with the big kid swings. And then we have the top area, so a little smaller structure, spring toys, and then the top swings. Parks did want to know, so I'll just overlay this whole thing. They really wanted to hear from people who use the playground, kids and parents. I mean, that was, they said, we're great to give you our thoughts, but we want to hear from parents. So I just want to overlay that. But one thing they did want to know, and something staff brought up, because every feature needs distances around it for fall and other guest protection, because of this swing set here, it does limit the size of a big play structure. So he said, if the community says, no, we're kind of combined, fine combining into this singular swing set that does have more room for a bigger structure with more features. They said, ask that question, because we want to know, because right now there are 6 big kid swings and 6 tot swings. Could it be 4 big kid swings and 2 tot swings? So that'll be something we'll ask when we get to the engagement part. We then started showing them photos of, themed elements. Do you want something themed, like very elaborate, trees and forests, educational placards and things, versus what I'd kind of dubbed as more like that typical urban suburban structure, but nice color palette, clean, some nice features. They said, well, the themed ones, look great and it's fun. It's only new once. Once it's built, that's the playground you have, and it's no longer unique or different. It just is. They said they'd rather spend the money, more toys and more features that the community wants in a, what may be a more simplistic but elegant structure. This picture actually is something Seth pulled up for the budget discussion. They said, just build us that. They actually like this whole kind of concept and layout, but it was certainly they wanted to have kids involved in what features they want in the play structure. So they liked the general layout. They kind of liked the, I'll call it typical structures, but with lots of features and elements. We talked about the surface treatment. You can do a pour-in-place rubberized surface. You might see that at outdoor malls or other higher end parks. Ours is an engineered wood fiber, and by that is it's still wood chips and has that natural appearance, but because they're engineered, it actually is ADA accessible, and so it is ADA rated, and people in mobility devices can access it. This it keeps engineered fiber. It's a nice natural look. You don't have to worry about the wear and tear. As you add more chips, you don't have to worry about people damaging the surface and tearing it out and repouring it, and the large cost of actually making the pour-in-place surface. So what we'll be doing over the next probably year, putting together cost estimates so we know generally what our target price is so we can keep accumulating over the next several years. We'll be doing outreach and engagement, most likely in the spring and summer season. There's not a lot of users right now. And that's actually something we could add to the Easter event, is starting to poll people, what do you want for a playground? What's important to you in a playground? Eventually, we'll get to different draft designs and concepts with the idea that we'll be building this, within 5 years. So kind of that 3 to 5 year target is what we're looking at. So that was generally the parks meeting. Questions, thoughts?
Well, we have Councilor Smith as a representative on the Parks Commission. I think you're still there. Yeah.
No, that's pretty much what we
still on?
discussed and what we,
Sure.
and we wanted to get opinion from parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good first step.
Well, sir, sounds like a thorough report. Councilor Rio Campos, you're on there too.
Yeah, I was unfortunately not able to be there. I had something come up because of work, but just something looking here in the report, and you mentioned ADA accessible. Were there any conversations of including some ADA features to the play structure?
Not directly, but I mean, that will be obviously part of an overall design and feature. There are actually ADA swings. This is a specific example. City used to have one, and it was the most vandalized feature, I think, in the entire city. So I'm not sure we'd go necessarily swings, but certain elements on the structure itself, absolutely.
Councilor Clark, anything?
No, Mayor, I don't have any comments on it.
All right. I do appreciate the Parks Commission not just putting something in a space just because it's open. So that was, I thought that was a very, reasonable conversation to arrive at a decision. Let's leave it alone for now. So thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. Appreciate our counselors who sit on that commission. Meeting dates.
Yeah, no presentation on that one. We kept the dates as the second and fourth Tuesday for 2025. No meetings in August and only one meeting in November and one meeting in December.
Okay. All right, we got one more discussion here, climate-friendly, equitable communities. Greg?
Yeah, you're with the Greg Show. My apologies.
Yeah, well, what we pay you to do.
And, we saved, I think, the least favorite for last. While the other conversations were fun and building towards something, this is something that's being done to us. Climate-friendly, equitable communities, CFEC, we've turned that into a swear word internally. We're going to walk through, because it's been some time since we brought this back, maybe new for some people, what it is, how it came about to be, and what does it mean for us in Wood Village and your options moving forward. So again, a little bit of background. A summary of the regulations. The regulations themselves are 89 new rules. I think it was 700 and some odd actual pages. I put a 6-pager in your packet that generally hits the highlights and gets you the gist of it all, again, and what it means for Wood Village. So this actually dates back all the way to 2007 with House Bill 3543, which the legislature passed a carbon reduction goal that was going to take the 1990 carbon levels, reduce that by 75% by the year 2050. So that was passed and approved and then monitored and measured ever since. And then around 2020, they said, we are nowhere near close to this goal, so we need to take more action, which is quite remarkable. And it's something that I think to at least consider is through all our population growth and all of our other economic developments statewide, we have actually reduced carbon levels, given even the population growth and everything. It's just not as aggressive enough to reach that specific goal. So in 2020, the state convened a work group to develop what they called climate smart regulations. That was everything you'd think from transportation, land use, reducing vehicles miles driven, and it was a statewide effort. It included, I want to say around 45 either individuals or organizations. The unique thing was there was one representative from the entire Portland metropolitan region. So you think all around the state, the most densely populated part of the state should have had some representation, and it had one person. And all 89 new rules were adopted. And kind of because of the, how do I put this? A lot of the entities and organizations that were part of this crafting were I'll call it singular focused. I'm not judging how good or bad that focus was. They were advocates for dense housing, affordable housing, reducing vehicles miles, active transportation. And those are all good things. It also seemed to lack, though, that big picture when you put all these individual pieces together. What does that do to the whole system? It kind of seemed to lack that. Therefore, a number of cities and a county and some businesses, Wood Village included, sued DLCD because we felt they didn't have the authority to just kind of run that through the process that they did. So again, it wasn't because we're anti-climate friendly and other ways to develop communities and get around communities. It was these one-size-fits-all solutions don't fit anybody, and that those who know their communities best are best served to develop their communities in a way that which will be accepted by the community and serves the community and helps get to this goal. Well, so we went through a lot of time with the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals essentially, but for two rules, sided with the state. The cities then appealed to the state Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court said, no, thank you. So the rules are in place, the regulations stand, they are what they are. So what are the regulations? Again, I am hitting a high note and a very summary at best because it was 700 some odd pages. First one is called Parking A reform or regulation. And that prohibits cities from mandating parking minimums at certain development types. Like medical care facilities, child care facilities, affordable housing, small housing, shelter sites. It also prohibits parking mandates of more than one parking space per unit at multifamily development. So for example, Wood Village, our current code is 1.5 spaces per unit. Now we did put in, through our neighbor commercial zone, some parking reduction bonuses based on certain development criteria. So as you build something more that benefits the community, we can lower your parking. But this says, no, you just 1 space per unit maximum mandate. But here's the kicker. They also added a piece that prohibits all parking minimums within a half-mile frequent transit. So, okay, frequent transit, that's your 15-minute bus rapid transit, that's your urban cores, that makes sense. Frequent transit is the most frequent transit in each community. So a community could have every hour service, that's frequent transit. A community could have every 30-minute service, that's frequent transit. They didn't just apply, 10 or 15-minute service. It was whichever is the most frequent is your frequent transit. And I have a map of what that looks like for Wood Village. It was interesting, I think it was Forest Grove. It was a West Side community, smaller community. Had concerns with this because, well, just, our bus doesn't run all the time. And so they were trying to appeal to DLCD. And they said, we'll come to a council meeting. And the DLCD rep said, I can't because the bus doesn't travel that part of town during your meeting. And they kind of thought, that's our point. Like it. But the rule still went through just the same. Now, that's not to say that developments can't develop parking, we just can't mandate it. This rule actually went into effect January of last year, and we just haven't put it in our code based on the lawsuit. We also haven't had any new development that, kind of fit that. So we've kind of been lucky that we've been able to ignore it going through the legal process. So this map actually was developed by DLCD on our behalf. So this is Halsey. So this is line 77, our rapid transit. The blue line is that half-mile buffer. Why the town center starts to arc off is because this portion of Halsey actually isn't in Wood Village. But functionally, we can't mandate parking anywhere in the city. You got a little bit of Upper Village, a little commercial spot here, but the town center, Halsey, Original Village, our commercial industrial area, can't mandate any of it.
Now, if I don't know if I heard you, but residential and commercial?
Can't mandate any parking. Any parking at all, can't mandate it.
Greg, there's a new bus line on Gleason now. I think it's bus 75.
Yeah, and 25,
25,
yeah, that's new. I'm not sure what its frequency is just yet. I think it's going to be increasing as it becomes more popular and more refined. So yes, thank you for that, because that was going to be my other point is, while this is the box today, that Gleason line will probably fill in the rest of, the southern part of the city. It just is. And they didn't stop with parking A. There's also now parking B. So parking B does a lot of stuff. It's actually quite complex. There's still some crafting and fine tuning of the final rules, but generally the intent is in place where you have parking lot standards for any parking lot that is developed. And that's preferred placement of carpool and van pool parking. You have to allow redevelopment of parking lot for bike or transit uses or other underutilized parking spaces for new development. You have to allow shared parking, which again, our code actually does still already include shared parking. Just want to point that out. Parking lots of more than a half acre, and this is new parking lots. So current parking lots, they're existing non-conforming. Have to install 40% tree canopy, solar panels, some sort of green energy, facilities to be shaded through parking lots, and adopt maximums in certain locations. And so, Gordy can't mandate minimums. There's also, we can't mandate, you have to have a max to put in place as well. There's also required EV, so electric vehicle conduit, in at least 40% of spaces in new multifamily development. So apartments, when they get developed, if they have parking, 40%, at least 40% of those spaces have to have conduit to facilitate future charging stations. There's a whole litany of stuff. I'll show up a graphic that explains it a little better, but then there's kind of a menu of options you have to pick from, and that's basically unbundling parking spaces from leases, whether that's commercial lease or residential. So say you rent an apartment at the byway, you would have to separately lease a parking space. It's no longer included as part of the rent because that way you're not paying for someone else's parking space if you don't need one. You could mandate what's called a flexible commute benefit on businesses of more than 50 people, which is essentially at least a $50 monthly stipend towards transit use, passes, et cetera. If you have parking lots, you have to tax a certain percent go towards other green infrastructure and other further limits to maximum parking. This one, because I think a lot of the rules are still being kind of finely crafted, we actually got an extension of June 30th of 2025 to develop and adopt these. So what does this actually look like? There's a little chart. So basically, option one is you just repeal all parking mandates, and that's generally the gist. But again, you still have to kind of put in a few of those components that people do put in parking lots, like the EV conduit, the parking lot coverage, et cetera. If you don't do option one, you get to kind of pick and choose from various options. These go a little more detail of the bullet points previously. I'll get to it a little more detail in a moment, but basically, since we already can't mandate parking in the city, it makes most sense to try to do option one if that's the route we want to go. Okay, those were the parking regulations. Now we're on to the land use regulations.
Oh, boy.
So this work required the adoption of what's called climate-friendly zones. These are throughout the state's 8 metropolitan areas and surrounding communities. Now, to be fair, the area only has to be at least 25 acres. And for comparison, the Grand Ronde site is about 30. So we're not talking large swaths of land, and mostly it would fit in existing downtown corridors or areas of most existing communities. And this is where the land use code has to be revised and amended to allow a lot greater density, building heights of over 100 feet, mandated floor areas for residential, a bunch of other stuff. I didn't go into those details because a benefit of being in the Portland area and the urban growth boundary, our existing town centers actually already qualified as a climate-friendly zone. So I didn't really pay attention to the new regulations for the other areas around the state because our town center already qualifies. With an asterisk. So while we have our town center, it's an adopted town center from our standpoint. From Metro standpoint, it's still conceptual. I talked with Metro staff about why is it still conceptual. We've done a lot of the work. Basically, they said they never got the ordinance saying it was adopted in its boundary. So to make it official and actually adopted, it's an ordinance from the city council to Metro by the end of 2025. And then lastly, to the transportation system. So there will be significant work in what's called the transportation planning rule process. That's done at a metro and state level, so we don't play directly in that. It's a metro process, so it has PACs, TPACs, MPACs, all those initials, all the PACs get involved in crafting these things. Metro's going to start that work into 2025. They think 18 months. I think as we've seen from a lot of their past work on larger transportation works, I think Metro has done a great job lately of trying to balance, the environmental concerns and concerns around vehicle miles traveled and the practical implementation of those and where I think we are at regionally. Sometimes that doesn't satisfy all parties, so it can take a little longer, but generally they think 18 months. Once that's complete, that will then impact the kind of the state and regional transportation system plans. So think, ODOT, the county, et cetera, which will inevitably feed back into the local transportation system plans, which you think, well, for Wood Village, we've got our neighborhood streets, everything else is county. But what the county does will impact it, especially around reducing vehicle miles traveled and what may come out of that and what may we need to do land use wise around that. And we don't know and won't know for 5 years or better. So something just more future, late 2020s, early 2030s, whatever comes out of the next 5 years will have an impact on us in that regard. Okay, so what does this all mean? Basically, technically, legally, and Jeff, feel free to step in whenever you so choose, we can't in pretty much the entire city. So if a developer were to come in and say, I like that old Vista View site, I'm going to build 80 units with no parking, there's nothing we can do about it. They have the legal right to do that. Now, I mean, in a lot of cases, whether it's through lenders or leasability, they most likely will still build some parking in a new multifamily development. They're simply not required to, and we can't mandate it. Troutdale was kind of a neat little example, because again, same situation as us. Halsey was a frequent line for them, and the new Home Forward project just off of their downtown core was in that corridor. They worked with that developer to try to fit what the right parking was. I can't remember what they finally settled on. I think it was 1 space per unit. I think the developer wanted something like 0.75 and Troutdale wanted 1.5. So I think they eventually settled at 1. And I think that's a great example of just because we can't mandate it doesn't mean that there still may not be options and parking as part of development. If we were to formally repeal all of our minimums, that would also satisfy parking B. We just have to add a few of those code elements for what happens when people do build parking. Again, can't really envision short-term the next 1 to 3 years of big problems with this. I mean, if someone were to build something at the town center, for example, a lot of parking there. When you think, okay, the old Vista View site, if they were to get a lot of units, yeah, we're going to see a lot more cars, but we don't have, 6 or 8 of these larger multifamily developments with little to no parking. But at some point, that may be an issue. Say we'll address it at that time. A sarcastic thought of mine was to send the state, when people complain about no parking, send it to the state. State can handle those calls because they mandated it. That's the sarcastic me, and the Wood Village me says, no, we will continue to work with all of our community members and try to find solutions for people. But again, I don't anticipate anything in the short term, but there could be longer term concerns.
Hey, Greg,
Yes.
if they're going to require the EV, that's the electric vehicle conduit. for
Yes.
Charging stations. They need to put a gas pump in too. I think that's really discriminatory against people that use gas.
Well, again, it's just a conduit, so maybe it's a gas line, not the full pump, just the line.
Yeah, one or the other. I'll take it.
So bringing this up, because this is policy, this is your playground to play in for adopting this. So to be in compliance, we need to adopt parking A standards, and how that happens satisfies the bulk of parking B. We need to adopt the town center formal boundary, and that's by the end of 2025, but the parking is by June 30th, 2025. Now, again, you don't have to adopt these. There are potential repercussions if not. Generally, it starts off as the state sends a letter saying they're very disappointed. They'll send a few of those because the state does. I mean, in their credit, like to work with entities and organizations to come into compliance. They don't like using the hammer the first time around, but eventually they may pull your state fund sharing, your revenue sharing, other grant opportunities until you're in compliance. The other more real issue is, let's just say developer comes in and says, I'm building 80 units, I'm not having any parking, and we say no. They have full standing to sue us, and we'd be court ordered to allow it. Still anything that we didn't stop it, we just delayed it, but cost a lot of money. So there's not a lot of upside to not being in compliance. There's a lot of downside. It's also not something we necessarily need to fast track. But that's kind of where we are. Thoughts, questions, direction? concerns?
We got time. What are the other cities saying about this? And are they loving it or are they hating it?
You know, it's as varied as the people in every city. So you've got some cities that think this didn't go far enough and should have and could have done a lot more. You've got other cities who kind of like us thought this went too far in dictating the specificity of what's required. Again, not against the goals of what it's trying to do. It's just it needs to fit the community. So it's the whole, you've got cities that were very early adopters of this and I think love it. And you've got others like us who are just sitting on it.
I just don't see what the solution would be if we had a community member complain about parking. Like if there's really no solution, how would we make them content with?
So I'm going to use Riverwood as example. I know we have some people who live there and I think probably deal with, or at least see some of the struggles, the day-to-day. So again, Riverwood, it's a single-family development, tight driveways, not a lot of on-street parking, and it's very specific, 2 parking spots, not a lot of options for wider driveways. And so you get, whether it's a household that has multiple drivers, so you can get 4 or 5 cars in a household very easily, or a multi-generational household, or maybe, and this is what we see in Riverwood, an individual can buy and sell 6 cars in a year without a dealer license. So that's 1 car every month. You get 2 or 3 household members doing that as a side gig or something, not illegal. That's 18, 24 cars parked throughout the year. So a lot of our parking complaints or concerns come from Riverwood, and it's because of that lack of on-street surface park or on-property parking. And what we do is the city says you can park in a spot for 48 hours, otherwise then you have to move it. And so we're pretty good at then we mark the car, we inform the owner, and they move it. Now, how far they move, they can move an inch, they can move a mile. Moving is moving, and it starts the clock over again. So, I mean, in realistic terms, in the future, there's potentials for some, and I think you may have heard this in the news from Portland, they got very aggressive with their towing. If it's not license plates displayed, a VIN number displayed, it will be towed. We don't get a lot of that here. We may get some expired registration or some out-of-state plates, but that's not necessarily no plates or no VIN. So, I mean, you can get more aggressive with your citations. You can get a little more aggressive with how long you can park in an area, create parking zones, for example. All that tends to do is get more complex from a management standpoint and irritate people who do call Wood Village home because they still need a car to get around, to get their livelihood, and now you're punishing them for it. So, I mean, we end up being the enforcer of the state's rule that we didn't want in the first place, which is why my sarcastic comment was have those people call the state, because that tends to be the state dictates things and doesn't deal with the direct outcomes. And I think they need to if they want to start getting this kind of specificity.
Greg, there's a house, a single-family home that we're not going to build too many of them right in here now, but would it mean that they wouldn't have, they didn't have to have a driveway?
Correct. You can't even mandate a garage anymore.
And so that means that the setbacks, okay, and you don't have to have a driveway.
Correct. No driveway, no garage. You don't have to have any parking at all. And whether it's a single family home, apartment, a business.
That sounds attractive.
Well, and that's where, I mean, and the state will say, and I don't disagree, that to make it attractive in most cases, I think especially in a more suburban area, providing at least some parking to make it either leasable, buyable, attractive. It just may not be the numbers in which we feel are adequate for our community.
So the ground that a person decides to build on is really, you can expand the setbacks for parking, for what? I mean,
Well, I think the idea is if cities don't mandate areas for parking, that's more room for housing. That's the state's.
I heard you right. If you had to, you're going to build a fourplex, don't have to have any parking.
Correct.
You can build on the whole piece of property. Our zoning, that was once zoning.
Backs and lot coverage. So they couldn't take
lot coverage.
like to say 8,000 square foot parcel, they can't take all 8,000 for the structure.
You still got the same setbacks,
Correct. We modified them a few years ago from another state mandate.
but
yeah.
not the percentage of land that can be built on that's now, we can't control that.
No, that's still the same for us. It's, I believe our lot coverage is around, on average for residential zones, about 50%.
Does that mean that they can do away with the roads too?
No, the roads get to stay. But on that point, though, not necessarily applicable to Wood Village because we're not going to have a lot of open land for new subdivisions. But looking at where we get to those local transportation system plans, having more what's called skinny streets, where they don't offer on-street parking, so you get more land for the actual development. But again, not really applicable to Wood Village as, I mean, our last big parcel is the Greyhound Park for full development, and then for redevelopment, it's a couple, it's a handful of sites, whether it's Upper Village, Lower Village, along Halsey, and then certainly our industrial areas, but that's industrial, and we're not going to get housing in there.
Because there are places that have just townhouses that have absolutely no parking, and people just walk to their homes straight off the bus. I knew a lot of homes in England that were built like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's something the state is trying to encourage developments like that style where people take more transit or shared parking and do not own an automobile, thus you don't need to park it anywhere.
And that's only just for new development, not existing.
Correct. I did clarify with DLCD because we do have large parking lots. And again, I won't disagree, especially at the town center, Walmart, et cetera. They are overparked, and it would be great to get some infill development there. But I also check because we have like the Grand Ron, and that is basically one big parking lot. And as the Grand Ron develops that, they're free to keep the parking lot as it exists. But if they were, let's just say, tear it up and build stuff on it, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But current parking lots get to remain as they are.
I was just going towards the comment where you said where, developers that do like multi-units, they can charge extra for their parking spaces. So looking at our current like apartment complexes.
That would be an option. It goes back to the under parking B would be something we would have to require as part of our development code that in an apartment complex, your rent does not include parking. So if you don't have a car, you're not paying for that. But if you do, you are paying for that. But kind of our unique situation of we can't mandate parking anyway, it makes most sense just not mandate parking.
Or that?
Well, it doesn't
Sounds
make
fair.
the most sense, but according to the state standards, that makes the most sense.
Well, anybody else got any thoughts that we should regulate or anything else?
No.
No? Okay. Counselor Clark, you good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, Greg, thanks for,
I guess I do have
taking
a, a question. I mean, I definitely get the sense this isn't, the best thing since sliced bread. But do you want to be in compliance and within the relative timelines, I guess, is the question.
I say no. I'm sorry.
Nothing to apologize
I don't
for.
like being pushed around by anybody.
And that timeline was 25?
June 30, 2025.
Yeah. If we can, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it if we don't get there. It really depends on what we're going to spend our time on.
And as it gets close to us being withheld revenue, then I think at that time we might need
Yeah.
to
Well, when the
speed
money-
it up.
Well, so I think what we can do is kind of, won't make it a priority, dabble in it, get some stuff ready. So whether it's
Yeah.
developer, state starts putting more pressure, it's a package and you're ready to go.
Monitor it,
Right.
and then,
Yeah.
we got to act and we're ready to strike.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
that was good, Greg.
Greg, yeah.
And I do have a couple non-agenda items real quick, if that's okay, real quick.
Yeah.
The first one is Christmas scheduling. So Christmas is on a Wednesday this year, and typically, staff gets, that's a holiday day. And, how that varies from, Christmas Eve to Christmas kind of depends where Christmas falls, with the Wednesday a little unique. My plan was, and just want to kind of get the council nod, close at noon on Christmas Eve, which we've done in the past, pretty traditional, but not open until 10 a.m. on the day after, because people out at family dinners and get back maybe a little late. They don't have to be up and get here at 7:30 to get a little time to sleep in and gather themselves. But just kind of want to get the council nod on that.
Good.
Okay, I agree.
Perfect. Staff will be very happy to hear that. And then just lastly is it is confirmed for the 21st at Grand Ron. So we've talked about agenda items and tours, and I've proffered. So in the past year, they've finished their child care center. So that could be neat for a tour, since we've have kind of an interest among the community-wide, how that operates, funding, et cetera. They also finished their community healthcare clinic, which includes community spaces and a community kitchen, which is something I know has been discussed a lot. So I've kind of proffered that to Stacia. Said both would be great, but either one that we can get some time in, talk to how it operates would be great. Then we'll go into our discussion about the future of the Greyhound Park, and I think some of our concepts and ideas. I was also asked for a quick little history, because the following day, the 22nd, it marks the 41st anniversary of Grand Ron's end of termination. And that's when they actually were terminated as a tribe and they got restored. Some of us have heard that story, but I thought with the anniversary just the following day, it might be nice to hear it again and remind everyone of that. So, but didn't know how people may or may not want to carpool or schedule it, or if we just send out an email later. But I thought since we're all here, we just get a quick pulse on how people want to get there.
I need a ride.
Pat, I'll be glad to give you a ride.
You still have your license?
Yeah, it's from Disneyland. Mickey Mouse signed it personally.
That'll work, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, now this is November 21st, right?
Correct. Yeah, a couple weeks. Yep.
And what time should we be down here?
It will start at 10 a.m.
Okay.
We need to be at Grand Ron 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
And that would include the tour, time for
Let me
tour.
know when you want me to meet you or whatever, Mark.
Yeah, I can pick you up at City Hall if that's what you want to do.
I say generally, we can always meet here, whether you're traveling alone or if you want to kind of caravan, we can meet here at 8 and leave, so I have plenty of time to get there, especially
That'd
if
be
I'm
good.
driving.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
8 o'clock here, Thursday. Yeah.
I'll be going down with my wife, because we're going to then head over to the coast after. We're on a little tour.
I'm a driver, someone wants to brave riding with me. I got my license in a Cracker Jack box.
What time did we say we have to be there by 10?
It's by 10.
By 10?
I'll ride with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. You're brave.
Yeah, I do have insurance, so
Get your helmet.
I have all types of insurance.
You have to wear a helmet in the car.
I'll send out reminder emails and make sure everyone's coordinated.
Good.
I just got to double check on drop-off duties first. So
Drive alone and drive how you need to drive.
What do we got here? Okay, that's
That's all I had.
We got just on the backside, there's some dates coming up there. And I won't be at the turkey drive because that's day after the,
You'll be on your way to coast.
yeah. Any other comments or?
I
Anything
just
from
want to
council?
give a public recognition to our Public Works. Garrett, Robbie, and Austin helped put together the soccer goals out there.
Nice.
So just wanted to give them a public acknowledgement. Already gave Erica a thank you for lending them to their services. But yeah, so those are out
That's
there.
great. I saw that in the
Weekly.
weekly that
Yeah.
you worked with them. We got some real soccer goals now, I guess. Yeah.
They're ours now, so.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other official comments, and Counselor, anything, we break any laws tonight?
It sounds like you're going to. Other than that,
That's
it's not
another
too bad.
phase.
Okay, well, we still got
I'll warn
time.
you when you get close.
Okay.
I'll let you scratch
Yes,
out.
sir. We should start breaking a little bit. Okay. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned.